All right, we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. So first of all, thanks for everybody coming out. We, as staff here, we always say, this is your co-op, and these town halls are kind of what it's all about, right? We want to hear from you. We want to have engagement. That's really been one of our strategic focuses here lately. So first of all, I have a lot of my leadership team here who will be answering all the questions tonight. Oh, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I'd like to thank them, number one. These guys, I couldn't ask for a better team. This group, awesome. So I'm going to go through them. Crystal Greathouse. Crystal has moved into a project leader role. We're going to get into business planning and scheduling of our projects. So it's going to be a great role for her. Patrick Nabi. Patrick is our operations manager. So anything operations, tree related, lineman, all that, Pat handles. And Jason Prather. Jason is a new employee. He is the manager of billing and member services. Matt Raver. Matt's our accounting and finance manager. Jeannie Lockley. Jeannie's our HR manager. And then not part of my leadership team, but a big help for the team all in general, Abby Asher. Abby is in charge of communications and billing. So anything billing related, she should be able to. Yeah, and the food. And the food, yeah. So again, I really do appreciate y'all coming out tonight. We've got a few slides to go through, just some general information, but really these are set up. This one is really set up to hear from you, answer questions, feedback. That's what co-op is all about. That's the beauty of a co-op, part of our model. And so if there isn't questions, we do have business update, other things we can get into if time permits. We're probably going to go about an hour, hour and a half, something like that, depending on kind of where we go and got questions that need to be answered and things like that. So again, I'd like to thank my team. We're going to go ahead and get started. So the first slide here, and again, we don't have a lot of slides. So, but I thought we always talk about, well, what is Decatur County RMC? How big are we? What are we dealing in? So I thought we'd give you some high level statistics. Of course, these statistics change. So these are good as of about a month ago. So number one, we serve about 8,200 meters. That goes up and down, as you can imagine, throughout the year. It has been gradually increasing year over year, but very, very little. Right? So you lose some, you gain some. We have about about a little over 1,000 miles of line. And again, you wouldn't think that number changes, and it doesn't much. But you do add some line here and there, and we retire some lines. So that number does jump a little bit. We have about 7 members per mile line. So that's the unique thing about co-op compared to a municipal or an IOU. There's literally 7 members per mile line, right? So you're not serving high density areas per se. Next thing is we're about a $35 million company. We got about 61 million in assets. And today we're about it's actually just shy of 62% equity. This is another unique thing about Decatur County RMC. Typically, co-ops are either summer pickers or winter pickers. And we end up switching. So, and I don't know rhyme or reason of why, but I can tell you that we will peak summer, summer, winter, winter, summer, summer, winter, winter. And it's been like that for about the last decade. So we'll see if it continues on that way. But what I mean by peak is if you look at the demand, the usage at its peak during the month, overall we switch, right? So we'll either be the 3 summer months or the 3 winter months. When people talk about, well, how big are we? We're about 68 megawatts. That's about the system of our entire system. It's about 68. Who do we serve as far as the different classes? This is revenue numbers, not KWH or energy numbers. About 43% of our revenue comes from industry, about 10% from small commercial, medium commercial, large commercial. I classify those all into commercial. And then about 47% residential. Again, that's based upon revenues. And then we serve primarily Decatur, but also Bartholomew, Franklin, Jennings, Ripley, and Rush. So a few different ones. So First thing I'm going to go through is we've had some retirements and some turnover, and so we've got some new faces. We're actually a pretty young team if you look at the entire company. So I wanted to introduce you so that if you come in and paying your bill or dealing with us, you kind of know who these new faces are. So I just mentioned Jason. Jason's our manager of billing, member services, everything up front, essentially. Heidi Staggy has been with us for a few months now. She is one of the girls up front. So if you come up, pay your bill, or do any business up front, you'll meet Heidi. And then Leslie Best up here at the top. She's been here since November timeframe, so fairly new. So bear with us when you come in the front door. Like I said, we're a pretty young group. And then just recently, we did end up adding two linemen to our apprentice linemen to our team out back. That is Caleb Littmer and Evan Talent. They are starting next week. So later. I do not have a picture of them yet, but you will see those two. They'll be going through our apprentice program and such. Now what we're going to go over some of the things that we've been doing. I'm going to turn it over to Abby to go through the first slide. These are just some of the community things that we've been involved with here recently.
So a few weeks ago, we held our first responders live line demo event at Milhausen with the fire department. We had, as you can see, 20-ish guys and gals from our local fire departments come down. Our linemen, Matt Eden and Paul Trinkamp, went through the live line, and then we fed them all very well, and they were very appreciative. Since safety is our utmost thing here, we definitely want to reach out to those people that are first on scene and share we go hand in hand.
Yeah, and this is one of those where I'm going to add with Abby that, we want to be a part of the community. That's part of our, call it principle, right? What better way of being, a part of the community than to help train our first responders. And we've had issues and things in the past where, we get a call from 911 and they're saying, hey, there's lines in the road, right? We get out there, our guys get out there, and the lines are no longer in the middle of the road, which means somebody moved them, and you can never consider a down power line as dead, right? It could be insulated from ice, snow, water, it just depends. So I thought this was a great event. We're going to do a lot more of these. We knew we weren't going to be able to capture every first responder all in one event. So we're going to do a couple of these throughout our service territory to hopefully mitigate the risk and for us to, use our expertise to sort of educate those. So.
And then a few other events that we had go on, the Greensburg High School construction class, the senior construction class, they came in for a quick presentation as well as a live line demo. These students were kind of uncertain on kind of what their career path is, and actually after our presentation, people that were looking into our line of work. We had a couple students attend Page Day up at the State House where they met with their representatives. We held our first roundtable at your REMC. We had a pretty good turnout. Timing was not very good for some of us that were. We did get to hear from a good handful of people. And then lastly, just that little Easter trail. We were part of the Decatur County Memorial Hospital Easter Trail. We ended up at the YMCA. We actually took one of our bucket trucks out there, and the little kids was able to touch the truck. Other than it being super windy, it was a pretty good day.
So we were fortunate enough to have one of our first class linemen, Colin Crabtree. He was selected by Indiana Electric Cooperatives to participate in a mission trip to Guatemala. This mission trip consists of about 16 other linemen throughout the state, a few support staff members. They're there for a little over 2 weeks. He's currently there as we sit here today. And where they're working at is a very mountainous terrain. And what they're doing is they're actually building lines to villages that have never had electricity ever. So, in doing such, they also don't have the luxuries that we have with the digger trucks and bucket trucks. Everything they're doing is being hand dug with shovels, post-hole diggers, and everything's, they're climbing every pole that they've got a string wire up on. So some pretty good work for them. I applaud Colin for volunteering. all the guys. This is actually the second time that we've been able to send somebody. About a decade ago, we were able to send one of our other linemen, Brian Amrine, to a mission trip at TownHall as well. So they're currently in a village called Roja, Guatemala. And their project is a line extension that's off of a build completed by the Arkansas Electric Cooperatives a few years ago. The project will extend electricity to 26 additional homes using approximately 30 poles and about 3.75 total miles of line. This project begins at an elevation of approximately 11,000 feet. The home at the end of the line is atop a mountain peak roughly at 12,000 feet. At this point, they do not anticipate wiring the inside of each home, but there'll either be another co-op or another entity that comes in and finishes that project. So pretty good thing we're doing there. I'm pretty proud of Colin, so want to give him a shout out. So.
This slide is for our Operation Roundup program where members can round up their bill. Those funds are held in a trust. The Decatur County REMC Trust is run by an 8-member trustee board, and they get together twice a year and look over the applications, review those, and then award funding to different organizations in our community. So since its inception in 1999, 103 grants have been awarded to 117 different organizations. A lot of it are volunteer fire departments, some funding to schools for different projects, the Bread of Life, just any organization in the community who wants to submit an application. They're welcome to do that twice a year. Deadlines are the end of January and end of July. And we want to thank all of our members who do participate because it really does add up and it's really helped a lot of funding in our community. Those dollars stay here and help. So thank you.
Now we're going to switch over to a little bit of what's coming up.
We are excited to announce here in the last couple of years, we haven't been able to have our annual meeting in person. This year, we're going to return back to the Decatur County Fairgrounds. It's going to be Friday, June 16th in person, 4 to 7 p.m. Following that will be the virtual business meeting starting at 7:30. Some of the reasons to attend, we have a registration credit. All members who register at the event will receive a $10 bill credit. A free fried chicken meal with ice cream. The fried chicken's actually coming from O'Mara. CP's Tavern will be here catering and cooking the chicken, and the ice cream's local as well. So it was nice to be able to get everyone that's local and members. With engagement, we'll have staff, directors able to visit, vendor booths, an LED Lucy, and then we sign up for prizes. We've actually had a great turnout for a lot of donations and prizes this year, so something to look forward to there, another reason to attend. And then also you can vote for your board of directors and your nominating committee.
All right, so talking about the election voting, you have several ways that you can vote. So you can do it by Smart Hub, you can do it on your mobile app, you can go into the Decatur County REMC website and vote straight from the website. You can do it by mail. Just make sure that you're returning your ballot in the envelope that they provide with you so that it's already postage paid. And then you can also vote in person if you forget to mail it. You want to make sure you allow sufficient time to get it there by the Postal Service. I know sometimes with the Postal Service, things take a little bit longer to get there. So, doing it in person or online is your best option to make sure that you get your vote in there. If you need to vote at the meeting, you'll just walk up to registration. We'll get you registered for your $10 bill credit, and then we'll give you a ticket. You'll go over to the voter desk and you'll scan a QR code, and then you'll be able to vote from there. So very simple process. Think of the next one. So some of the things that REMC sponsors is we have a lot of youth engagement that we like to do. So one of the events is the youth tour. Every year they take a group of seniors going to be seniors to Washington, D.C., and they get to interact with the legislation and kind of learn all about Washington, and they do a lot of really cool things. So that's coming up this year, June 11th through the 18th. We have 4 kids that are attending from here at Decatur. And then 6th graders going into 7th grade go to camp, just up at Camp Tecumseh, up around Delphi, Indiana. And that is from June 10th 7th through the 10th, and we have 6 of them attending. And they get to do horseback riding, they do canoeing, riflery, they see live line demos, they learn about all kinds of things with electricity. So it's a really cool experience. And those are all paid for by the REMC. So all of these kids get to go free of charge. So it's a great benefit for the kids. And the next one.
And here, within the month of May, they'll be reaching out to certain members about a survey. This will be reached out via email and or a phone call. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. This just helps us kind of understand, we are here for our members. So we do value your time. If you are willing to take the survey, we can take these to action and continue to try to satisfy all of our members. So like I said, that will be coming out sometime in the month of May.
So Smart Hub, I know we get a lot of questions from members on, hey, I heard that my neighbor got this email blast from you and we didn't know anything about it. Why are we not getting that? The reason is that they have to be signed up for Smart Hub. So if you're somebody in this room that wants to be communicated to via email, just like you get your magazine information, you just have to go to the Decatur County REMC website and then you can sign up for Smart Hub. By doing that, that ensures that you'll get any kind of information that we send out via email that's coming from here local. I think that's it.
One other thing I'd add to the email thing too is if you are signed up through email, make sure you check. I know that I've heard from a few that it can go to your junk. So just make sure that you get your emails and, if you are signed up for emails and confirm that with us, make sure you get in and look at your junk because it can throw it over that box. So that's really what we had planned. Again, we've got other things if we want to go through them, but this is really more about the members. We value the feedback. One thing that we're all doing is taking notes and kind of that. It's always been my dream to sort of pack the house in engagement events. And quite honestly, it seems like as we get better at these and we do a little bit of learning, we're getting better participation. And that's again, that's a dream of all of ours, right? To get the engagement and get people to come in. So, again, we do appreciate you coming. With that, we're going to take questions, comments, feedback. If you got one, just raise your hand. If you don't mind, just state your name, and then we'll get it to the appropriate person. Go ahead.
Okay, so I brought a couple pictures of my tree that the crew came by yesterday, and the person that did the preview had said they were kind of going a little more tighter this time about what they, how far they wanted to cut back on the trees. But my thought was this time they cut it, the first time they cut it, it's like half. Okay, so when people buy a home, it's there, it's like half the tree was gone. Almost. And so it grew out a little bit. And then yesterday they cut even more back on the tree. And so I'm just like, did something really change about how they're doing that? Or, I know the weather's gotten more ferocious and windy, and there's a lot of fluctuations in it. But it seemed like, granted, they were all very nice people and they, did a good job, cleaned up. But my tree looks bad. And I said, and he said, your tree's really tall. And I don't know if we'll be able to get that high. Well, he said we might have to bring in a chopper to cut out that part of it. And then I said, well, if you're going to keep cutting it, can you just cut it down? And he said, well, no, we can't do that because your tree would probably cost about $2,000 to take down completely. I just thought, it is a great tree, but now it kind of looks like because I don't know if anyone else feels that way about their trees, and I do, but it's a huge, big poplar, and I just don't know what the solution. I know we're at the end of the line. I live off of 229 out between Batesville and Napoleon, and it's kind of like not up close in the area, but it's never fallen where I'm at. It's somewhere else, but yet I feel like my tree, which just so happens, I guess my side of the road was easier to put it on, or I don't know, but
All right, you want to go over sort of,
Yeah, I'd be happy to look into your situation, specifically your situation.
yeah,
To give a little background as far as what we're trying to do with our trees, since 2016, we started what we call the reclaim.
right,
Before we used to just trim 4 foot below the neutral. And we didn't have a whole lot of money to work with budgetarily wise,
yeah,
but we are also seeing the outages that were tree related going up and up and up. The cycle that we were cutting, was basically a 10 to 11 year cycle. And by the time you get back around to what you just cut 4 foot below, that's way above the primary, which we want to definitely keep it away from there. So we enacted what most co-ops in the state and the nation are doing, and they're doing a reclaim where it's ground to sky. And, we try to get 15 foot. Actually, there's co-ops pretty close to us that are going for 20 foot. We elected to go 15. If you have an easement that only says 10, we can only do 10, but we ask for 15. The point of that is we're trying to get out of those cyclical costs. Because if we always have to come back every year and cut that tree, all the cyclical costs eventually go back to everybody's bill. So if we can get out of those cyclical costs, then that's all the better. When we find opportunities where, if there's a line that just runs straight through the woods or it's all back lot and we're always going to have to cut those trees year over year over year, that cost is never going to go away. So we've actually had some spots where we've elected to go ahead and put underground in to avoid those cyclical costs altogether. But once we get that right of way cleared, we won't actually, for the most part, they won't even really have to do a whole lot of trimming in the future. Drastically reduce our right of way budgetary necessities in the future. So, I mean, there's not a person in this building or company that hates trees, or I don't enjoy by any stretch making somebody lose their. But if I'm curious on the experience where you said that they wouldn't take the tree down, because we have done that a time or two. That's why I want to kind of look into your scenario, or your situation.
I brought some pictures of it. I have them in my car.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily like I wanted to take it down, but what happens is, seriously, this side of the tree is gone.
Right.
Here's the trunk, and then I have this side of the tree left. And so that is what I don't like. Now this time they did better. The first time they trimmed the tree, I did not know. So kudos to you for having them bring the card. I don't know if that was your plan, but.
That was I'll let you know.
Okay, there was a card where you had an opportunity to schedule, and I spoke with the guy, a really cool guy, a veteran. And, but he said, I'm sorry about your tree.
Yeah.
But I mean, seriously, it's like this side is completely gone and now I have this side. So I'm like, what's the point? Driving down my road, it looks kind of, not saying, I don't know. I just feel like there's some kind of shaping or some kind of thing that could be.
I can touch on that. We as a group decided that as a co-op, we wanted to make sure that we communicated that we were going to be in your area. We do not want to be the co-op or whatever entity in this world that all of a sudden a member comes home and their tree's gone.
Yeah.
That's not good business. So we seen that in the front end and we said, we need to communicate this. So we as a group decided that let's do this. There are some other companies in the world that they'll run a 3-day ad in the paper and they notified you.
Yeah.
But we don't act like that. That's not what we do. But when it comes to shaping, I mean, unfortunately, the utilities of the world, we're trying to get our right of way established because we want to keep the electric on.
Right.
If we start shaping, unfortunately, I've had to have this conversation many times. We start shaping the other side of the tree for beautification, then the cost for us to beautify your tree is now being paid for by the rest of the 8,000 members in our co-op. And that really doesn't sit well. I think when part of your bill is being paid, if part of your bill is going to shaping somebody's tree in, say, Jennings County or whatnot. So we usually, most often, if it's going to get cut back all the way to the trunk, and these tree guys know trees way better than I'd ever pretend to know trees.
Yeah.
If there's a really good chance that it's going to kill that tree, they'll say, hey, we probably recommend go ahead and taking this tree down.
Well, it's not going to kill it because the first time they cut it 2 years ago, they took off a big piece. Now it's back to the middle, pretty much straight up.
Right.
Straight up until the very top, and then it kind of leans over a little, but it's still 15 feet away because it's above it.
Right.
I don't know. I just wondered if like something had changed around all of that, and he said they're really wanting to get on that 15 feet thing, but
So back in 2016, it did change from 10 to 15 foot. So that's probably the change you're talking about. 5 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but when it comes to a tree, it's quite a bit. That might have been the difference. But I'd suggest we go out and take a look at it. And just to a little bit of data on that too. We just got done with our first cycle from 2016, and according to the data from the last couple of years, we've saved members about 5 hours per year. Every member 5 hours per year on tree-related outages. It has made a dramatic, especially if you live up by Lake Santee, it has made a dramatic difference in our outage time. So, yeah, I know, like Pat said, we don't love cutting trees and things like that, but it's a necessity. Yes, sir.
And when they cut the trees, I think I mentioned this last meeting, that one lazy crew that used to come down, it took them 3 to 4 days to cut down 2 trees. And this great big huge peach tree, they didn't even ask, just cut the whole damn thing off. They said, a word to me after they done, it kind of made me mad at hell.
Yeah. I would suggest anyone that sees our tree trimming crews, we have contracts with these crews. We do hold them. Most of it, and I don't want to say all of it, because a lot of it is bid, but some of it is hourly. So let us know if you see stuff like that. We have 2 meter men that we actually have kind of managing that program. And the whole idea is they kind of do a crew audit, right? So essentially they'll show up. Well, unfortunately they're not there 100% of the time, right? So you're not going to always catch them if they are doing that. So if you do see something like that, let us know. And
I will add to that just real quick on when we talk about bids. There's usually 2 types of bids. There's unit bids, and then there's we're gonna charge you this amount for this tree, and every time it's gonna cost this much for this tree. But when it comes to right away, it never really gets bid by that. The only hourly bid we have is our basically our maintenance crew that does our hot spotting for members that call in and say, we got this danger tree, we got this. That's the only hourly crew we got. So as much as we don't like the bad PR of tree trimmers potentially sitting in their, taking an elongated break or whatever they may be doing, know that the only people that they are really affecting by that financially wise is potentially their company, not us. Because whether it takes them 2 weeks to get that circuit cut or 365 days to get that circuit cut, we're paying them the exact same amount. That's up to them.
So,
Sure. That big sycamore one tree, I talked about the time I said they would trim the limbs off of the tree. Not worry about that, the more the wind took it down the opposite direction. 30 inches on a stump about 100 feet tall, and I clean the mess up, so they won't go like that.
Yes, ma'am.
that's okay. I'm going to pass. This gentleman had a question.
I have a large locust that's we up and then out this direction. It's already over the wires. So do I call to have them come trim or?
Yes, definitely. Call in our front office. So just so everyone knows our process, if you guys see, there's a couple different things, right? Number one, if you know that it's already into the lines, let us know. It may be a part of already the plant, may not be, it just depends on the location. Or number two, if you see a dead ash or kills, right? They're killing everybody in the state of Indiana. So if you see a dead ash tree, even if it's off of that 15 foot, it's going to hit our lines. We want to know about it. Call in the front office. What we'll do is they'll create what we call a tree ticket. That tree ticket goes to our maintenance crews. They'll go out and assess it. If it's a danger tree or a dead ash tree and it's out of our right of way, so it's out of 15 foot, but it's still going to hit our lines, we will come in and top that to make sure that it doesn't hit our lines. So let us know, call it in. We have a tracking system that actually works really, really well. It may take us a week to get out there, but we've been on these pretty good. I think our backlog of tree tickets has gone down majorly. So if you call in, you'll probably see us in the next week. Definitely. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the last 2 times that I was without power, probably about a year ago, there was a big one and I was without for like almost 3 days. This last time it was really quick, but I guess my question is were those tree related? Or were they?
I'd be more than happy to conversate with you on that. And I'd have to look up your location. I'll have the history,
Yeah, because
the outages you've experienced.
is that mostly what it is when there's a big storm is the trees?
It's kind of hit and miss, as far as big wind events. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
if it was a big wind event, you're going to get a lot of trees coming outside of the right of way, tearing lines down, whatnot. You'll have some poles that are just weakened, maybe not even identified yet. We've actually had some, linemen kind of always joke sometimes, is you'll have a red tag pole and then you'll get a wind event and you'll have two poles that weren't red tagged, meaning they're rejected. They're laying on the ground and that red tag pole's still standing. So it's like, wow. But regardless, it usually takes down poles and then the trees. That's usually the big thing on wind events.
okay.
And ice too. So if you have the tree that the gentleman was talking about, where you got wire or, limbs over top of the wires, even if they're not hitting wires, you get a little bit of ice on that, we're gonna have a problem, right? So 2018 was I think it was 18, wasn't it?
They all roll together.
18 and our big ice storm, which probably may have been a contributor to the multi-day that you were talking about. That was a lot of the issues. You had a lot of limbs that broke under that pressure. So we're hoping if we didn't get any major ice this year, we're hoping that the system would perform a lot better now that we've got a lot of that cut back. So. Yes, sir.
Switch gears here a little bit. I know some other co-ops are doing a high-speed internets,
Yes, sir.
and I called in there and they said that you weren't much, wasn't looking. Are you looking into that? I just want to know how much more you're looking into that. And my wife has a follow-up on that.
Sure.
My name is Jeannie. This is Paul Wiseman. We live out on 50 North. And we have 6 kids between us and 2 of them are college. So when they come home, they have college work to do. And then we have the kids that are in school that have work to do and we don't have the internet to provide for them. So we're just wondering, where's that at?
So where we're at right now is we did, and I'm going to go through, is that the broadband town hall?
I didn't get that one.
Go back and look at it because there's some really good data in there as far as kind of where we're at and what we've done. I'm going to brief it real quick, but go back and watch the video. It's on if you go into the website, then under news, you could actually go back and watch that town hall. But essentially, so about 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago, we started a feasibility study, right? That's where we kind of make a business case. We went out and did that feasibility study. It came back and it's really heavily dependent on grants, right? So we went and then did a survey of members. I'm sure some of you participated in that. It did validate our take rates, and the take rates are a major driver of the business case. So now where we're at is, and I don't want to say we're sitting on our thumbs because we're not, right? We're working with, Sam wasn't able to make it tonight, but we are working with other partners to see if there's other opportunities in the meantime. But really, we're kind of in a waiting period. So Okra is a state grant that's coming out. It's, I want to say almost $1 billion of state funding. And then BEAD. So you guys have all heard about BEAD, right? It's the federal funding. It's a lot of money that's coming. And it will basically go to the states, and the states have to figure out how they're going to divvy that up. So we are positioning ourselves to be able to fill out the grant work for that stuff to get grants in order to do it. So right now we're kind of in limbo. Again, our business case is really heavily dependent on this. I'd be a fool to tell you that anything's going to happen before next year, because next year is when BEAD's going to open up. They're saying early next year, but Okra is supposed to be, out 2 months ago and it's still not out. So that's kind of where we're at. I know there's a lot of other co-ops that have done it, have some success doing it. Every co-op has a different service territory. Every co-op has different competitors that are in the area. So they're all a little unique. We got to go after these grants and see what we can do. I don't think it's a closed item by any means. We're talking about it every day, honestly. And we get phone calls every day.
So do you have people designated to go after those grants? Because wasn't it Senator Greg Pence got Indiana millions of dollars for rural internet?
That's that Okra probably. Yeah, and they haven't released it.
And that was like 2 years ago that he got that.
Fifth BEAD, I'm hoping, they're saying again, early next year, but I think what they're finding out is they're learning these grants as they go, right? And so the only one that's open right now that you can go, it's called middle mile grants. And you have to be a broadband provider. It's middle mile, so it's not necessarily to the home. So there's really nothing open right now. We're really waiting on this Okra grant to come up, which is big dollars. And the BEAD grant is, do you guys remember the number from the state? I mean, it's billions that are going to go to the state. So, and if you look at the FFC maps, we feel like we're positioned really well to get some of those dollars. So that's kind of where we're at. We're talking about it daily. I actually have a project leader. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it tonight. Wasn't able to make it tonight, but,
Tell him that.
Thank you.
the other thing that did happen to, Decatur County, officials right now are finalizing what they call a broadband ready community. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's a certificate that means a lot on a grant. It means that everyone from a local government standpoint is supporting it. And so they're almost done with that. That's going to be a huge thing that we need to be able to check the box when we do these grants.
So I'll ask you one more question.
Sure.
Is there anything we can do as customers to help?
At this point, the only thing that you could do is if you go to the FFC maps and get on that, go watch that town hall that we did, but because it'll give you directions to get there and everything. On the FFC maps,
I think that time.
no, they're always updating it. So you could go in and you can challenge. So what you're going to find out is there's a lot of wireless technology out there, and I'm not going to name names, that say that they can provide internet to you at broadband speeds, and they can't, right? So.
They can or can't?
Can't.
We learned that.
Yeah, we learned that. We got several news.
There's several locations like that are like that. Where it's going to help is the federal government is going to give the states money based upon that map. So the more that map is real, like real life, the better we are as a state. Now, is that going to equate into Decatur County RMC getting more money? I don't know, but it doesn't hurt, right? So the one call to action I would say, and we made this loud and clear, and I think even some of the city and town events they've been trying to promote. Yes, they kind of closed out the first section of it, but all the grants are going to refer back to these FCC maps. So if you get on that map, all you gotta do is type in your address, and it'll come up and it'll say, here's the providers at your place. If you know for a fact, if there's a provider on there and they're saying it's broadband speed and you know that it's not because you've talked to them, you hit the challenge button. You can even put upload documents or whatever in there, but you hit that challenge button and then it actually goes in, and they have to provide data that shows that they can. And if they can't, it goes unserved. So you will go from served dot, because it's all by address, to an unserved dot. So that is something that you can do. And the more those are updated in real life, the better opportunity whoever does the project will have to get the grants. So, but I suggest if you look at today, that's the other thing. The state just did approve a law for what they consider broadband speeds to be. And so they up that. So fiber sort of starting to fit into that, right? So anyway. Good question. Yes, sir.
Getting phone calls about putting solar farms on their property. Should we talk to them people?
That is completely up to you. You could get into debate and debate either side of that. What I will tell you is that from our standpoint, it's not directly us that's contacting you. If you do go forward with something, make sure that you get somebody from legal to look at the contract. But that's totally, there's going to be a lot of solar that goes across the United States. It's going to be needed, right? You know, in the next 20 years. So, you could debate whether Decatur County is the right place for that or not. Suggest if you do look at it, just to get an attorney to take a look at the terms. Fair enough? Okay. What other questions? Yes, sir.
Tim Gow. I served as a director for 35 years, chairman 15. And actually my grandfather Gow lobbied when the REA law was going to be passed. Grandpa Raver was 126 member RMC. And when I was elected, Noel Kramer was who I replaced, and he was a good mentor for me. One of the things that a co-op with history is that we do a lot of things that other people for profit wouldn't do. And back to the broadband thing, you know, that's something that RMC can do. It's not going to be a big profitable thing, but we're sharing all the costs to get it done, just like electric did 75 years ago. And the the past, we've done a lot of good things. Rural water in the western part of the county, REMC promoted. The new industries on the east side of town and Honda, we were all part of that. Roy there was one of them that pushed part of the Roundup. The propane, just lots of good things have come out of the REMC because it's a community situation. And I would like to see REMC dig into it and see what we can get done, because it's, we know what electric did for us on the farm. Nobody was going to service out there until the RMC did it. That's where we are with the broadband. Nobody's going to do it until somebody gets behind it and gets the job done.
Yeah, Tim, I hear you. I'll be quite honest, I didn't even, wasn't completely, 10 years ago, what a co-op does. And I'm telling you, the business model of co-op is one of the best business models I know of. It is unbelievable what we can do, right? We don't have shareholders, right? I don't have to generate a profit. None of us get paid by profit, right? So we can do things, and we have infrastructure out there, right? We have assets that we can use for other things. So it is a beautiful business model that can work for certain things. And, you look at our mission statement, and it's how do we serve the members? How do we provide those things to the members that are needed? So I'm a big believer in, whatever it is and wherever we need to be, we have a business model that is so unique that it really positions us well. That onto what you're saying. What other questions? Yes, sir.
Roy Friedersdorf. I served on the board with Tim Gauck, and I certainly agree with him about the internet. Glad to see you guys are looking at it, and it can't be fast enough.
I understand.
Electric bills are too high, just like everything else. I don't have any complaints with the REMC and all their, go to the grocery store. That's what's outrageous. So I thank you guys for all that you do. Keep power affordable and consistent. I've been very fortunate. Put a standby generator in. I haven't got to use it though. That kind of ticks me off.
That's kind of a given. When you put one in, and you never need it, right?
Yeah.
That's good to hear, Roy.
Yeah. My main concerns, I guess, are not with the RMC as we see it, but it's more on the board of directors. I'd served on the board in the past, and I don't like a lot of the things that I'm seeing. I read the minutes, electric consumer, almost every month. And just a lot of things that are going on, and I challenge the board to try to get these things right. I guess there's a concerned member group out there. And there's a lot of propaganda that's being spread by that group, and they have these meetings. It's directed by one director on the board. And they have meetings on the side, as I understand it, and a lot of it is propaganda, and no doubt some things are good ideas, but we look at what they're doing, and they didn't like the elections that we had. So they challenged the election. I know there was a big expense that wasn't publicized. There was a big expense involved in that. I'd be curious to know what that expense was to recount the votes. Nothing changed, but it sure cost us, the member, a lot of money.
You talking federal or, you talking REM?
It's a lot like federal. But it's the local REMC, that, like the election that we're going to have coming up. Our local directors on the REMC board. And there was, I usually don't watch the meetings online. They're too long. Sorry, but I did watch one. And another thing that came up, and I don't know what it was about, but there was this whistleblower item And that came up, and I know that you had to hire a lawyer to look in and do all this investigation. I don't know what that cost, but I do know that that was voted to not make public. You know, if that group's going to say we need everything above on the, you know, we want transparency, but we don't want it when it makes us look bad. So, you know, at least that didn't sit well with me. There's just several things that are happening, I guess, on the director end of it. And I'd like to see what some of those costs are, what it's costing the member. Because as far as I know, none of these propaganda things have resulted in any actual actions. It's more like out here looking for a smoking gun. You got one director on the board, a couple puppets, and you've got one director that has it in for the RMC, and he's out here looking for the smoking gun. And the membership, I don't think most membership doesn't realize it. So I think it's great that everybody's here tonight talking, and I don't want to throw a bunch of worms out there, but I would like to know what these are costing us, the member, if that's possible.
I'll answer that as much as I can. As far as the whistleblower, that's a governance task. I wasn't involved in that, so I defer to the board. But one thing I will tell you that, and we're going to actually do a piece in Brett's Buzz next month, so there'll be more on this. But as far as, you know, I don't like to use the word transparency because to me, it's really relationships, right? I can put all the information out on the website, and if I don't have a relationship with you, you're not going to believe it anyway. So we do have everything out on the website. There is a process on the website, a policy, a board policy that describes how you get information. If you want to see data. So I would say, you know, you can go out, look at that, fill it out. There's a form you basically got to fill out. You can come in, we'll go through it. I always ask that, you know, if you're asking for a piece of information, let's sit down and have a discussion about it, right? And discuss what you're seeing, because I will be honest, the financials through this business, you have to follow the government's requirements, right? So we don't just, and Matt can chime in here, but we don't just pick how our accounting systems work, right? The government gets to tell you how to do that. So I feel like we're as transparent. I'm not going to speak on the board's behalf. I'll defer to them, but if it's operations related and there's questions, comments, you want to have a discussion about it, we're an open door. You can come in the front door and we'll have a discussion on whatever. Because I'll be quite honest, my team's good, but there's thousands of members with other ideas, right? Those ideas come to us, we're going to look at it. You know, I'm always a big believer, and I think my team is too, and the culture I'm trying to set here is the more perspectives you bring in, I may not agree with you, you may not agree with me, but probably if we get together, we're going to come up with a good solution, right? So that's the impact of, that's the beauty of our business case or our model, right? Is bring all these perspectives together and come up with solutions. So I'm going to defer if anyone from the board wants to talk as far as the whistleblower part. That I wasn't involved in that, so I don't know.
I'll just make one general comment related to that. So we had a roll call vote at the last meeting, our April meeting. And I would encourage then for those that or you have concerns to go ahead and contact those directors that did vote no. It is in the meeting.
Good. I mean, did I answer what I needed or anything else I can provide?
I'll be filling out that form.
Tim?
I'll speak to that a little bit too. I've heard about this Concerned Citizens group, and actually just in the last week, I stumbled across some of it. And it's amazing how much is not right about it. I mean, there's a saying that figures don't lie, but liars figure. And, you know, I think you need to find out who this is and approach them and get them the right information. Yourself, you work for Hillebrands. And if you had, I'm going to go into the credits now, but But Hildebrand was a stock company. If the stock people didn't get money on their stock, they wouldn't be investing there. And the RMCs are somewhat that way. I mean, 30 years we've had an investment in there, so it's time to roll that over. And, there's talk about borrowing money. Well, Hillbrand's borrowed money, didn't they? General Motors borrows money. If you farm, you borrow money. Why do you borrow money? Because you're going to keep up with what's going on. If someone would come to your office and say, I want an extension to my house, you can't say, well, until we have the money, we can't do that. So I'm not sure they understand the business cycle of what needs to take place in these situations. And if you can address some of that, I think that would be great.
We do have a business update if we have some time. I might be able to provide some insight on that. I can tell you as far as any type of misinformation, Tim, quite honestly, we're not going to respond to that. What we try to do is make sure we get as much information out to the members. If you have questions, we're an open book. I'm not a guy that's going to tell you something without actually sitting you down and going through it. But to play, in defense to misinformation, we're not going to entertain that. We're going to get out to the members what we believe or what we know, right, is correct information. I do have a business update that, I was going to go over tonight, but honestly, I don't know if we'll have enough time or not. I try to, during our board meetings, honestly, my team, including Matt, goes over financials. We go over financials in grave detail every single month. If you go out to like I said, if you go out to the website, you can watch the board meetings. We actually quarterly put our financials out on the website. So we're trying to get the correct information.
To your point, though, what you see on the screen, the board does get much more in-depth information. I'm sure they could speak to that as well. They get a lot more detail than what you see on the screen at the board meeting.
Which is a good thing, right? I mean,
well, just one other thing, Decatur County RMC has had quite a bit of success. I mean, we've had national leadership in a couple of areas. We've had probably the most presidents of Indiana statewide of any RMC in the state. There's a national award that's named after a manager that was here, the Matson Award from years ago. So there's been a lot of good leadership coming from Decatur. And I would like to see that happen again.
Agree. Yes, sir.
I got a question, probably don't even relate to this, but when we have all these natural disasters around the countryside, all the hospital equipment for 25 years, always got stuck going to these places. Chase all those RMC trucks down in Decatur County and all them. Now, do you guys donate your time and materials, or do they reimburse you for it?
So let me make sure I got your question right.
For maintenance, put power lines back up.
Well, for disaster, there we have an agreement across the state with pretty much everybody in the state of Indiana has mutual aid agreements, and we set the price. It's agreed upon ahead of time. We are reimbursed for.
That's good. Kind of wonder how you guys done that.
So when we have people come in to help us, we have to pay them. When we go to help them, they pay us.
It's just like we inherited another crew because we needed to help.
Oh, really?
It's the beauty of the business, right? If I need help, not very often does the entire state get hit, right? So if we need help, all on it, right? You have no idea what one extra crew on our site during one of our major outages, how that impacts your time that you're off. It's major, right? So we'll do that when it's needed. And then we also do give back, right? We actually had a crew that went up to Rush Shelby because we didn't get hit in the last storm, and they did.
We helped them about a day and a half. Got their members back on.
Oh, really?
And last time we had a major outage, people came from Marshall and Miami Cass, I think it was.
So we have those agreements in place. We review those agreements every year. I'll be quite honest, the linemen, I mean, they have a true brotherhood, and they truly do look after each other as far as like, hey, if you guys need help, I'm there. If you provide help, they're going to come help you. It's an awesome thing. It's powerful because I don't have to hire those people full time. you know, and in an emergency situation, we can call those people in. But did we answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. What other questions? Anything else on anybody's mind? I will go through a few things. I think I've hit some of this up. I'll talk, maybe it'll spark some other ideas, questions. So from a reliability standpoint, you know, I'm going to hit our mission statement, right? Affordability, reliability, and friendly service. So from a reliability standpoint, we talked about this. Our board has continued to invest in the right-of-way program. It has contributed a lot to our outage times. In fact, our lineman even said we have an operation review where we take all of our metrics, hundreds of metrics that we look at every single year. And I'll never forget, one of our linemen said, well, you know, one of the reasons the time's going way down too is because we can actually walk these right-of-ways. You're out in the middle, you know, of a woods at 2 a.m. It's completely dark. It's raining or it's snowing. And you're tromping through stuff that's over your head to try to find a line somewhere. That takes time, right? Now, if it's cleared out and I can walk through it, find the line, get it back up, your outage time goes from, you know, something way out there, something better. So it is definitely paying off. We're going to continue to do it. The board has been very gracious with the dollars that we put to that program. We're seeing the results, right? It's 5 hours right now, so far, 5 hours per year per member that we're saving on that. Another thing we're doing is, so if you think about 1938, do the math of where we're at now, we're really in that second cycle, right? So our poles last anywhere from 40 to 50 years, right? And so we're
On average.
on average.
Some are really.
Some are very, very low, some are very, very high.
Depends on the growth rates.
So anyways, the point is, we're sort of in that second cycle, right? Where we're replacing stuff. So we know we have aged infrastructures. And one of the things that we brought forth was right now, or we used to, we would test every single pole every 9 years. So we're on a 9-year cycle where we're testing the pole, and if it tests bad, right? And we have to do this according to the, you know, government standards, but you get to pick how often you do it. So we used to do it every 9 years. We test it. If it tests bad, we replace the pole. We're moving that to a 5-year. And the reason that's being done is so that we can get, you know, these, because we're on that second life cycle. So we want to get our poles replaced so that they don't end up falling down in the storm. So those are the two big reliability things we're doing. Friendly service, you know, we had a strategic initiative back in 2000, right when I started, and it was really about engagement. And that's why I said it's awesome to see a room that has some folks in it, because when we first started these, you know, breakfast with Brett's and all these things, you know, you'd have 2 or 3 people sometimes show up. So it's great to see that there's a room full. Yeah, so we continue our focus on engagement. We're doing a lot of Facebook posts. If you're not on Facebook, get on there. There's a lot of good information that comes through there. We're doing what we call email blast. So a lot of the information we're trying to send out through email. It'll essentially, if we have your email, it's going to blast out to you. You get to see, you know, board meeting minutes. You're going to get to see things that we got going on, all that stuff through email blast. If you don't have your email, just like she said, let us know. We'll get you signed up for Smart Hub. If you are and you're not getting those, check the junk mail. And then we're also doing the monthly magazine. And we did a survey not that long ago, and there's a large percentage of our members that want digital, they want print, right? They don't want digital, they don't want emails, they want print.
Now we want print.
Yes. In fact, I had somebody tell me in one of these town halls, you get rid of that, I'm going to hit you in the head with it. So we keep that, and we do articles in there. We put the board meeting minutes in there. There's a lot of information in there. So we ended 2022 with 180,000, what we call member contacts, 180,000. In 2021, we had 170,000. If you go prior to this, we had like 13 to hundreds of thousands of member contact opportunities. And then last year, 2022, we did 17 member engagement events. Again, we want to hear from you. We want to give you information. That's the beauty of being a co-op. From an affordability standpoint, so we ended 2022 at 0.9% on expenses to budget in a year where inflation was running wild. And if we weren't immune to inflation and lead times. Our lead times went, I mean, there were some transformers that we couldn't get our hands on for 18, 20 months, right? Scary situations, but we were able to manage through that. And like I said, we were within 1% of our budget last year. Also, another thing, we do what we call zero-based budgeting. A lot of corporations do this. They actually did it prior to me. I'm not taking credit for this, but zero-based budgeting is where every single year you start at zero and you're justifying every cost that's in your budget. It's not like I say, I got $6 million budget. Here's what I need to add into that budget. That's not how it works. You start at zero and you justify everything you need. That process provided a 2023 budget this year. So 2022 to 2023 of a 0.5% increase. So a 0.5% increase when inflation was running 8, 9, whatever percent, whatever the time period is. This is kudos to the board. The board has approved capital credit retirements for two record-breaking years here. So in 2022, 1.29% was retired in August. Yeah, it's close. And then we're scheduled this year in the budget to pay back 1.2 million for 2023. So those are just some statistics. Again, our team constantly is looking at our mission statement, affordability, reliability, and friendly service are our big things. Kind of went over the fiber update. So if I spark any other, I won't keep you here all night. Yes, ma'am.
How many miles or whatever of underground?
Pat?
I think we just went over this.
We did.
What was that? I apologize. I don't have that on my tongue.
I want to say it's just shy of 100.
About 70. I'm saying about 70. He's got some data there, so.
Are you planning on?
So we are, and there's two things that I'll talk about this industry that's changing majorly. And again, this is really prior to me. So one thing that's changing is we always used to go point A to point B, however bird flies, right? Quickest, easiest way to get there. Well, what we've learned over the years as an industry is that's not always long-term the cheapest way. If I'm going through a field, right, or I'm going through a woods, there's a lot of cost in doing that, even though it may upfront cost me more to go around it. So what we're doing is, and again, I can't replace the entire system, in 1 year, 60-some million and stuff. So what we're doing is anytime we have an opportunity, we have a new service, or we have an outage or any type of work on the system where we can move to the road, we can get out of right of ways, we can go underground where it makes sense, we're doing that, right? It's not always just the cost, it's the cost long-term that matters. And so we're doing those types of things. Underground works great in some areas, it doesn't. It's very, very expensive. Everyone always thinks if it's underground, it's immune to outages, and that's not necessarily true, right? You got rocks, you got things. One thing that I'm gonna say that Pat tells me a lot, right, is if it's overhead, I can see it. Right? I know where I can identify where the problem's at. If it's underground, who knows, right? I got to start using some tools that you don't use every day. So we are doing more of it, but we're also looking at the business case of it too, because it is still quite a bit more expensive to go under. Yes, ma'am.
So, not very small, but fiber optics under the ground?
It depends. So you can go underground or you can go aerial. Now, in our case, we would hope a lot of that would go aerial because, again, anything underground is way more expensive, right? So if you can utilize the assets we already have, right, and go aerial, that's the cheapest, best route. Fiber's not quite like electric either, right? So you don't have to worry as much about the safety of it if it happens to fall. And if you've ever tried, I don't think anybody's probably ever tried this, but fiber doesn't break very often, right? You have hundreds of strands of fiber in those things. So typically it's going to fall down and the wire's not really going to break a lot of times. Now it can be dug through and stuff, but to answer your question directly, both overhead and underground, we would hope that a lot of it, if we were to do a project, would be overhead just because the cost is significantly cheaper. What I call aerial, but that's overhead. Yes, ma'am.
So to touch on that fiber, Scott County REMC provides, my sister-in-law lives down there, and when she moved down there, she wanted fiber optics out where she was, they weren't out there. She just had to pay for it to be put out there. That's not something we could do.
I don't think so, because you have to have and I'm not an expert in fiber optics, and I'm gonna take a shot at this, but you have to have a ring, you have to have somebody operating, maintaining that ring. Obviously, that ring is gonna go to a transport, right, what they call transport optics, which is a big line that goes down 74 all the way to essentially Chicago, right? So there's gotta be someone doing all those things. So I would suggest that no, there's no one right now saying, hey, if you want it, here's the dollar amount to do it. What I will tell you is at least from discussions at the board level, it's really going to be all about, we're not going to serve one member and not serve another. We want to serve all members. That's kind of been the goal, is if we're going to do a fiber project, we're going to do it to all members. I'm not going to sign up and say that there's going to be no cost. If we would happen to do a project to sign up to get in, I can tell you that all the business cases we do and most of the RMCs are doing it. As long as you do it when it's offered, if they do charge, it's very little, right? Whereas now, if you wait 10 years after the cruiser, then you would be charged. I don't know if I answered your question.
Actually, I looked it up. We have 51 miles of underground.
But no underground fiber.
51 miles underground. I was a little confident. It was under 100.
Southeastern RMC is doing a fiber project. There are ones that we've been talking, I mean, I've got a great relationship with those guys. We're talking to them all the time. They're focusing on their territory right now. There are opportunities there in the future, possibly. We're learning from them. We're trying to help each other. We butt right up to each other. So maybe there's some opportunities there in the future too. We're going to uncover every rock, right? Every opportunity that might be out there.
Got a question to ask?
Yes, sir.
On fiber optics.
Yes.
Okay, so Decatur County would become ready. Fiber optic ready, right?
Okay.
Okay. How, if Decatur County RMC becomes the server, how will you serve everyone in Decatur County when you do not have utility to everyone in the county?
No, I'm sorry. When I say we're going to serve every member, that's every member in our territory.
No, so they will hit and miss, allow someone to hit and miss and not serve the whole county?
We would, it depends on how you want to look at it. So we will focus in, the board would want to focus in, I think, from the discussions, and I'll let them chime in if they want that. They would focus in on our members in our service territory first. Like these, and we want to serve everyone, right? Whether it's you're in Rush, it doesn't matter. If you're a Decatur County RMC member, they would want to serve those all first. Now, whether we would go out from there, possibly.
When this money is allocated, it's just allocated to your business and not the whole county?
No, it's allocated per census.
Or what?
Census block.
Okay. So someone would have to serve everyone within that block.
Correct.
So there could be multiple companies doing this?
Oh, yes. There is not, I think where you're heading is, there is not an established territory for fiber today. It's not like the RMC, like I think Tim was talking about earlier, like there's a state law that we have to serve anyone in our territory. You don't have a choice. As an RMC, you have to serve somebody in your territory. Fiber is not like that. So fiber, anybody could come into our territory or we could go into anybody else's territory. It's not territorial. I think that's where you're heading, David, am I right?
I'm just, if Decatur County RMC does, what is going to happen to the customers that are on Duke or some other RMC if our county is fiber ready? So that means the money goes in Decatur County. So they're not going to make sure everyone in the county is served. You're going to
It's all by census block, not by company. Although when we apply for it, it would just be for us, right? So you may have a Great Plains that's going for, a grant that's maybe not in our territory, maybe in our territory, and we may be the same way, right? So you could be competing for grant dollars. That's a very real thing.
I live right outside I live closer to Osgood or to that REMC than I do here. I don't know, I'm on this one versus that one. And so I just I thought the same thing because a lot of REMCs have already done the fiber, right? It's
Not a lot, but yes, there's
several.
quite a few.
Yeah, there's several already have. So I wondered, how can you get in on that if it's, but you can't, right?
And every single territory, as far as, so a great one is Johnson County, right? They have a very dense population. Instead of 7 members per mile line, they're way double digits, right? So their business case, and they don't have a lot of competition, right, in the area. In other words, they're very unserved and they're dense. Their business case made a ton of sense to do. They didn't even need necessarily grants, right? So it just really depends on, and I can tell you ours is, you look at anybody here can go out to the maps today and see our unserved territories. There's a lot of unserved territories in our district, that's why we feel like from a grant standpoint, we don't feel like we can go after, $5 million grants. We're talking, 10, 20, it'd be great if we get 30, but there's serious money out here.
Will there be major competition on competing for these grants?
Possibly, yes. Yes. I think we'd be crazy to think that we wouldn't.
We already got Great Plains by my house.
And that's why ours is very, very challenged. So if you think of where fiber is today in Decatur County, where's that? It's in all the highly densely populated. They did not want, there was no business case for them. They were going to lose shareholders money, right? If they went into 7 miles. So it's kind of like the electric business when we first started, right? It's going to be challenging, even if some of these folks get grants, because grants is a one shot, it's like a stick in the leg of cash, but 10 years from now, the operational cost for them to keep that up is challenging.
Hey, how far east of Ennixburg does the RMC, Decatur County Power Line stop?
Patrick?
Well, it's kind of hit and miss. If you follow Enochsburg, we jump where the bridge is at, but then our line stops, but then it picks back up again, which is kind of fed from the Batesville side. So we feed quite a bit.
Sometimes it seems like we're the last ones to get it turned on when it goes out. We're so far back in there.
I'm convinced whoever made the territories did something like that. No, actually what they did is when they wrote those, I'm sure Tim did probably, or Roy, they went with whoever was already serving the area, right? So they didn't want a bunch of that's the whole idea, everybody. They didn't want people overbuilding, because at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay for all of it.
Anyway,
So they territorized it. That's even a word.
It's today.
It is today. What other questions?
just got one quick one.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the capital credits. I think that's the way it's supposed to work. But I also see a lot of candidates in the room here. And I just want to say, I'd like to see them. Past got a lot of calls about running, and in this particular case, I just want to ask everybody to be an independent thinker, whatever, pick in all the facts and see what's right for everybody. And be a leader, not a follower.
Yeah, Bill Whittlesbach. At one of the meetings, there was a little discussion about being a 4x4 or 4-to-4 tie all the time. And then there was discussion of maybe eliminating a director, if I remember right, in redrawing lines. I think it would make more sense to add a director to break the tie, because when this building was built, there was 11 directors, I believe. And there's a lot more people living out in the county. And a lot of them don't know who their director is because they're, you're being spaced out. So I just thought that would just be a comment to make. If that ever comes up again, to think about maybe going, instead of downgrading, go ahead and add one to break that tie. Just something to think about.
Sure. That's a bylaw thing, so talk to directors for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to get it out there.
Sure. Yep. Good point.
Thank you for doing this now because the breakfast, because of work, you can't make them. So appreciate putting it in the,
We're gonna do a lot of these, right? So we will still do some of the breakfast ones. We will still do some of the lunch ones. I challenge everybody here to tell one person to come to the next town hall, because honestly, this is what makes us good. We're taking notes. We're gonna have a debrief after this, right? We're gonna be talking about trees. Things that come out of this are you'd be surprised. We're gonna talk about those things. It's not like we met with you tonight and all of a sudden we just go and do our own thing. That's the beauty of the co-op model. I'm telling you. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you for the safety.
Yes, thanks for coming, guys. Thank you for coming.